I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
So that's our new intro. You like that, Paul?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Christopher Hitchens from the grave. I think he's been in the ground about 8 years. So first things first, Alabama State Bar Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 7.2e, requires the following language in all attorney communications. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. My name is Harry Still, backwoods Southern lawyer. My partner, Paul Ripp, is here with me today. And I guess you guys can see him. Can we see Raines in all his ridiculousness? So how you doing, Raines? Raines is on his Chromebook today.
Oh, yeah. Enjoying this official Chromebook podcast edition of the Backstory podcast. I'm very happy with it, using the Google Hangouts and wearing my Soviet sailor's uniform today to
commemorate Red October. What the hell's that all about?
Shoot, man. Just know when somebody says, "Are you a veteran?" I say, "Yes." They say, "Where were you in?" I said, "The Navy." They said, "What ship do you serve on?" Krasny Oktyabr, comrade, tovarich. You know, I didn't say I was in the U.S. Navy.
That's more effective than picking your nose to get rid of an unwanted conversation, I find, if you
Absolutely.
say you're in the Russian Navy. So welcome to our home. That's where we are today. We had hoped to be in our new at our new location, and I'm going to go ahead and give you the address. It's the Van Buren Building in Daphne, right off 98, 28720 Highway 98, Suite 3. So if you're looking for us, that's where we moved to. So, Paul, I'm going to let you kick things off today. Why don't you give us a topic and go for it?
Okay, well, first of all, let me say Merry Christmas. Hope everybody had a good one. New Year's coming up. Want you to know that the RIP Report is a nonprofit consumer association. We particularly pay attention to political corruption. You can get us on Backstory through YouTube, Facebook, and SoundCloud. And we encourage you greatly to send us any information you have. A lot of the information that we have comes to us anonymous. So we would like to hear from you on something maybe we cover or we don't cover. The first thing up, want me to go with the first thing up on this?
Yeah, talk about Baldwin County Sewer Service, Paul.
Right. As you know, Baldwin County, now this is going back to the Lagniappe articles. You know, we do a lot off the Lagniappe articles. One of the things that people ask us all the time is, how do I get a Lagniappe? You can go to Lagniappe and ask for find their distribution list, and it can tell you where you can pick it up in your municipality.
Greer's and Bay Minette's where I get mine.
Right. Fairhope, there's many different areas. But you can get it all over the county, and you're probably going to get it a lot more coming up this next year in 2020. One of the two articles that I want to mention, first of all, was a couple of weeks ago. I've been out 3 weeks now, is another Lagniappe article. This is by Gabe Times, Settlement Agreement, Private Sewer provider puts a 35-year restraint on the public utility. And this is a 10-year-old lawsuit over water and sewer service territory in central Baldwin County. Was particularly settled last month after the defendant, the publicly owned East Central Baldwin Water Authority.
So we call it ECBC. It's East Central Baldwin Water, Sewer, and Fire Protection Authority.
Right.
It's a mouthful. ECBC.
Yeah, and they entered into a 35-year settlement agreement with one of the plaintiffs, which happens to be Baldwin County Sewer. The two other plaintiffs, town of Somerdale and the city of Robertsdale, were working on separate settlements in the case, although Somerdale Mayor David Wilson told Lagniappe its claims will likely go to trial. The suit was based on a pair of amendments that ECBWA made to its articles of incorporation in 2002 and 2008, both of which were approved by the county commission. The first enlarged and expanded the service territory to exclude almost 1/3 of the county, and the second allowed the utility to introduce the sewer service, a move both the city and the town objected to.
So I need to interject.
Sure.
All right. So nobody gave a crap about any of these people out in this area. There were people who were not being serviced by Robertsdale, Summerdale, Alberta, or at least that was the allegation.
Correct.
And so the old Rosington Water Authority came to the county commission and said, we want to expand our territory, made the proper application. I think what they're alleging in this lawsuit is that they lied, that the application was untruthful and that there was adequate service in that area. Of course, Paul, you and I both know what's happening out there now. When did they file the lawsuit on this thing?
This was filed like 10 years ago.
Yep. You said 2002 and 2008 is when the amendments were made, but the lawsuit wasn't filed until
I'm not sure.
A decade later.
Correct.
Because the Beach Express is going through there. Right?
Right.
So now we're shouldering other people out from the table. And what's telling to me is that the only person that they settled with was Baldwin County Sewer Service.
Yeah. Well, in another twist to the same article on the settlement agreement, Bay Minette Mayor Bob Wills, an attorney who represented ECBWA throughout the case, and the Baldwin County Commission at the same time during the period of the 2002 amendment that was approved, was disqualified from continuing to represent the defendant in the late November order by Judge Stankowski.
All right, so just imagine now, boys and girls, one damn time I need my map. Where's my map, Paul? So everything east of the Baldwin Beach Express, north of Alberta, all the way up to Bay Minette. So not only was Mr. Wills potentially a witness, but he potentially had another conflict in that because he is the mayor, he's also on North Baldwin Utility Board, which we've talked about ad nauseum. And they have a coterminous jurisdiction line where he might have a conflict.
Correct.
So he's got several conflicts. But anyway, and who removed him from the case?
Well, in August, Summerdale attorney James Cureton, I hope I pronounced that right. Curington,
yeah,
argued Will should be disqualified based on a rule against a lawyer serving as a witness. Such dual representation, what you're talking about, has resulted
which is hardly the reason he should have been removed.
Well, that's what, this would be in light, has resulted in Mr. Wills having to be an advocate and being called as a necessary witness at trial. The attorney quoted, Mr. Wills is the most material witness in the case due to his admission that the expanded territory approved by the county commission approved ECBWA to encroach into the municipal limits and municipal service areas that were being serviced by municipalities already, and a letter from the Alabama State Bar, which is rare, to Wills in August reached the same conclusion. Wills did not return any messages seeking or making any comment on that story. Then immediately this last week, again, an article written by Gabe Time says, pay up, records indicate sewer owner has a history of tax liens. And, it seems like Baldwin County Sewer, we're finding more and more and more about this every time.
So let's talk about that for a second,
right,
because so back when we talked about the straw man, that might have been the first episode.
Correct, it was.
There was a forensic accounting done. And it turns out that all this while, everybody was operating under the assumption that Mr. Burke was the majority shareholder in Baldwin County Sewer Service, LLC. But according to their forensic accountant, he is no longer, and this is more evidence of why. He's having to sell off shares. Well, he's theoretically, he's trading shares for something, and it looks like he's got money trouble, and which is one of the reasons why the Public Service Commission should get down here and regulate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And since 1997, Baldwin County Sewer Service has had imposed income tax liens of more than $7.1 million. That's since 1997.
Imagine what their bottom line would be if they had to pay for the use of the county right-of-ways.
Oh, absolutely. Well, another striking thing is that Burke and a number of the business partners and other companies formed over the years of land acquisition and development purposes repaid more than $36 million in defaulted mortgages in 2015 and 2016, and that was after Hancock Bank filed a lawsuit to recoup its losses. But one of the telling things that Backstory Factoid, and that's what we're trying to do in Backstory, is link some of these things all together. What I found is very interesting is that when they break down who owns what of Baldwin County Sewer, the very last person is John Avant and his wife, Olivia, were assigned a 2% interest in the company doing business as Southern Avant LLC in 2013. Now, Mr. Avant is the same business partner that is linked up with Councilman Kevin Boone with Fairhope City Council, and we went back and tracked many of the LLCs that they were involved in, of which some have been erased now. But it's striking when you read the straw man, you read the settlement, you read these tax liens, at the extent of Baldwin County Sewer is in court for one thing or after another. Now, one thing that is going to make it easier if you are really interested in the county and you're interested in the sewer and you want to take part in this and understand it, for more information on the subject, it's all been put in a series by Lanyap. So you can go to Lanyapmobile, one word, lanyapmobile.com/series/BCSS. And you can pick up these articles all the way from the straw man down. And what should happen is every one of the county commissioners should be presented with that link. And they should be responsible enough to read all of these problems, because what we're being told by Baldwin County Sewer is that, by the commission, is that any regulation has to be legislatively done. And that may be true, but with everything that's coming out, Baldwin County commissioners could put a moratorium on anything to do with the sewer until they get the sewer regulation done. Now, that would be looking after the consumers. Mr. Burke spends most of his time in Costa Rica, which should be of concern to people as well.
All right, so I'm going to talk about something very unpopular. You ready? You out there, Rains?
I'm here.
You and I talked about this on Skype the other night when we did our little dry run, and I want to start out by saying that I put this on Facebook so that we could have a reasonable discussion about it, and I don't want anybody to think that, given my posture and recent run-ins with the sheriff of Baldwin County, I don't want anybody to think I'm anti-law enforcement from the jump. But I posted this to Facebook, and I'm just going to read it. I want to have a reasonable discussion about these laws, and these laws, this law in particular, I'm calling the Blue Lives Matter law, and it's been proposed by Chris Elliott. And I said, I want to have a reasonable discussion about these laws. I've been under the impression that it was high time to repeal hate crime / thought crime penalty enhancement laws. For 200 years, we live in a country where the resulting harm was the measure of a crime, and the prosecution could express to the court during sentencing their perceived motives and ask for a harsher penalty. Instead, we're adding a profession as a protected class. I don't understand the concept. I don't know why. Crimes against the police are prosecuted from the public square by each district attorney like they were a damn bulldog. Judges give them the harshest sentences, and rightly so. To me, it's like when a Democrat proposes a new gun law, that criminals don't care what the penalty is, just the law abiders who wouldn't harm a police officer in the first place. So I think it's cheap political theatrics that accomplish nothing. Alabama already has an aggravator, which makes the killing of a police officer, sheriff's deputy, state trooper, corrections officer, even a plainclothes officer, if they were killed in the line of duty, even if the assailant was unaware that he was a police officer. And this is codified under the Code of Alabama, Section 13A 540-5. So it's congratulations, you get the needle plus 5 years? Or are we saying that toilet papering the police chief's yard is now tantamount to burning a cross in the yard of a minority? You should check out the misdemeanor enhancements that are automatic and not within the discretion of the court as to whether or not to impose them. This is how your civil liberties arose, by thunderous applause. Giving Chris Elliott the ability to legislate is like giving your 8-year-old nephew a loaded .44 Magnum for Christmas. So
That article.
I'm sorry?
That article.
Oh, yeah. And so who was it that wrote this article, Paul?
John Sharp wrote that. So,
and I kind of wanted to give my spin on it, and you can pick it up from there. But, you know, I believe we have a video, don't we, Nick? So I'm gonna show you guys a little snippet of a video. This guy's name is James Jacobs. He's professor of law at where? Rains?
I don't know.
Duke. Everybody's from Duke. Everybody I find that's a good resource is from Duke. I don't know why. And the name of the video or the speech he gave at the Heritage Foundation. Do you know who funds the Heritage Foundation, Rains?
Nope.
The Koch brothers, Republicans. So anyway, the name of his speech is "Why Hate Crimes Are Unnecessary and Undesirable," and it was a very unpopular opinion when he had it back. I think it was 7 years ago when he gave this speech. But we're gonna roll it for you, and we'll be right back. Go for it.
The crimes that cause the most anxiety in the society are murders, and rapes and brutal beatings, right? I mean, that's what, and those crimes already are punishable by life imprisonment or capital punishment. There's nothing more that we can do, short of breaching the torture, line. There's no more punishment. Now, some states have, especially Texas, I don't know what's done in North Carolina. One thing they've done is that they sentence people to hundreds of years of imprisonment. They don't stop at a natural lifetime, 50 years. They go to 300. People get punishments like 300 years, 600 years of imprisonment. I mean, that's kind of a symbolic response. But where the hate crime laws, if they were going to have an effect, they would have an effect more on low-level offenses where you could do more, where there was some room at the top. So when I was writing my book, I looked at the New York criminal.
All right, Paul, go for it.
All right. The John Sharp wrote an article in the Press Register recently, and it was "Can Hate Crime Law Protect the Police?" I'm like Harry. For a brief time in the Marine Corps, I served in the military police, so I truly have a.
How'd that go for you?
Oh yeah, that was fun.
A lot of evidence go missing.
Oh yeah, yeah, a lot of bar fights we had to break up, but anyway, I without police you don't have any control. You have to have police.
Absolutely.
And it disturbs me the way people treat police, particularly being pulled over or something. They don't have any, there's no respect in some cases, and I hate that. But going back to the hate crime law and everything, this is a political thing. This is a political thing by Senator Chris Elliott and the Sheriff's Department, and what should be backstory.
The Sheriff's Association.
The Sheriff's Association. The backstory factoid about this is that Chris Elliott's wife works for the sheriff's department. But anyway, in the article, some scholars on the hate crime subject also doubt the merits of the approach. Kama Chavez, director of the Criminal Justice Program at Wake Forest University School of Law in North Carolina, said that hate
Range, you
crime,
don't know where they are because they're ACC team. Go ahead.
said that the hate crime provisions is mostly a political tactic. Exactly what I'm saying. She pointed out that in some states, such as Alabama, the killing of a law officer in the line of duty is already an aggravated factor punishable by the death penalty. And she suggests, and I totally agree, it's not a way to honor law enforcement or first responders. She's saying that there are ways that are far more meaningful to honor these men and women with higher pay, better working conditions, maybe better insurance, maybe a separate fund that is already set up prior to someone losing their life to where they could help their families. It shouldn't be a political stunt that's meant to enhance the state senator and the sheriff's department. So there.
So, Raines, it's my understanding that if Alabama passed this law, we would be the third state. Wait.
Fourth.
Louisiana, Kentucky. Who am I forgetting?
Texas.
So yeah. So we'd be the fourth. Texas already has these enhancements. Tell us about them.
Well, Texas, Louisiana led the charge on it. Governor pushed for that bill to make crimes against law enforcement, give it a hate crime enhancement on the state level. And 2 days later, 2 officers shot a kid in Baton Rouge, and the city rioted, and they made hundreds and hundreds of arrests, and they tried to prosecute all of them under that state with that enhancement. And guess what? Guess how many convictions they got? None, because it's all politically motivated. You know why Alabama needs a enhancement for crimes against police officers?
No, sir.
Because of all the hate crimes. You know how many hate crimes were reported in Alabama in 2018, according to the FBI?
Zero.
Yeah,
I thought it was zero.
Zero.
But every time a cop gets elbowed when he's putting a drunk into handcuffs, what the aggravator for a misdemeanor is 3 months. That's a long time. What would your life be like if you went to jail for 3 months when you got out?
I went to jail for 3 days one time. My wife was shopping for divorce lawyers. So, shit, I can't imagine 3 months. Good grief. Well, does Alabama have the felony for phone harassment?
That's a good question. People
in Texas, we have a law that, and Mississippi as well has a law that repeated instances of telephone harassment in any way, shape, or form can be upgraded to a felony in court if they can prove a pattern. So imagine this.
We just have a misdemeanor harassment communication statute, but hell, there could be something I'm not aware of now.
Calls the police chief in the town and raises hell with them 4 or 5 times in a month. That police chief gets tired of taking that phone call. He can charge them with a hate crime now. Now, what in the world is that going to do for anybody?
Nothing.
I am not anti-police. I am fervently for law enforcement. I always have been.
Like I said, that's why the car's unlocked in my driveway.
Exactly.
Because of the police.
I am for cops. I've always been for cops. I got a lot of good friends and loved ones who are police and law enforcement officers, first responders as well. I'm a first responder myself. But we don't, you don't get to hang your uniform. If you're somebody who needs coverage by a hate crime statute, you can't take off your badge and go drinking this weekend and not have to worry about it. I mean, the people, the classes and the subclasses that are protected by hate crime laws, they need protection.
Well, and let's talk about this for a second in Alabama. So this bill was proposed last year, and State Senator Vivian Figures included an amendment to this bill that would, so Alabama hate crime law is not inclusive of gay people.
Correct.
If you can imagine that. So the whole premise of the hate crime law legislation was Of course, it grew out of the women's movement and the gay rights movement, and it progressed into employment law first, and then these hate crime ideas came along, where we're not only is the mens rea a component of the motive, but it can also be used in the sentencing of someone. I'm with you. I don't see any benefit.
There's no benefit at all, because, like you said before, laws only regulate law-abiding people.
So the feds, when they did this, or the Congress when they did it, the idea was that we have these backwater POS states like Alabama and Mississippi. No offense, Texas, Louisiana, some places like this, and gay people are being beat to death, and nobody's doing anything about it. Or somebody's burning a cross in a minority's yard, and it's being considered simple vandalism. We need to do something to protect these people, because the people in those states, the legislators in those states, aren't protecting them. Okay, so that's where this grew out of, and I think it's you go back to the Equal Protection Clause. How in the world, when you say, if somebody came in and killed me and Paul, why would it matter if Paul didn't have a damn left arm? Handicapped people are covered under the hate crime statute. And I guess if they go back to your MySpace page where you shared a NWA video in 1998, they got you on the hook for being anti-law enforcement.
Well, this thing has been crafted, and I like the way you put it when we talked about it the other day. This legislator is tap dancing on the grave of a dead law enforcement officer and trying to rile up his
and a
base. Good
man. I've never heard anything but good things about the sheriff of Lowndes County. Just a quality, fine man.
You wave the flag and you rile up your base, because your base is not pro law enforcement; they're anti-criminal.
Well,
and they wave the flag of pro law enforcement because they're anti-criminal. And what does anti-criminal come down to? Nobody likes to say it, but everybody knows when they take a breath to shout it out. There is a racial and socioeconomic undertone.
Well,
vocally pro law enforcement.
Well, also,
but that doesn't hold water, because you could have a devil worshiper working for the damn police department. You see what I'm getting at?
Absolutely. You know why? Because cops don't care. Cops don't care who's got a Blue Lives Matter sticker on their car. They're going to treat everybody the way they're trained to treat people.
Well, they should. Right, and rightly so.
It used to be back in the 60s, if you had an Alabama governor's staff placard on the back of your car, for contributing more than $100 to the governor's race, the cops would see that and be like, all right, I'm not going to pull that guy over. But that doesn't hold water anymore. Nobody does that. It comes down to you're railing up a political base. All right. And that's what you're doing. You're waving a blue flag, and the cops look at it and go, I swear to God, I hope that guy's got a warrant out for him, because I'm finna arrest him. Somebody waving that damn flag like that. Because cops are there to do a job. Cops are there to protect us. Firefighters are there to protect us. They're there to do a job. They don't dig on all this hero worship. That's not their bag. They're out there risking their lives, man. And they don't care about what you think about crime statistics and whatnot.
Okay, so that was one of the other things. Louisiana covered all first responders. Alabama's bill would only cover law enforcement. And hell, I got that thing.
And then it would come back and later on it would come back and want to add this and add that. But this does go right back to Senator Elliott, since he's been in there, has had a more than tarnished reputation, and all he's trying to do is polish it up a little bit with the help of the sheriff. And
That's right.
And if I were the police, like you said, I'd be a little annoyed myself and say, hey, there's a much better way if you want to do this than this. We don't feel comfortable just promoting you guys. It's political. It's totally political. And
it's absolutely political. And if I was a law enforcement officer, I'd be upset that somebody is tap dancing on my badge and stumping on my badge that I get out there and get behind every damn day, because I've never met an off-duty cop. Have you?
No.
Of
course not.
Never met
They're
a
out
prior
there
Marine.
every day.
So, Raines, what if I told you that the Ninth Circuit, Federal Circuit, has said an expression of distaste for police is protected speech? In other words, if I were to hold out my hand and only use the middle digit, that's protected speech.
Well,
Now, it's
sure,
probably ill-advised protected speech.
I wouldn't advise anybody doing that. But I think what the actual laws are designed to do is not protect people who want to wave a sign that says F the police, because
Right.
that's protected under the First Amendment. But they do want to protect somebody that says, I'm going to target Sergeant Whitaker of the Bay Minette Police Department, and I'm going to go after him because I got a personal grudge against him, and I'm going to use his uniform against him. That's what the hate crime law should be about.
Okay.
If there's not be one at all. But like I said, it's just political theater. You go after a cop, buddy, you're getting the dirt. They're going to throw you under the jail.
Exactly. So what's Chris Elliott's bill do? Give you the needle plus 5 years?
It's ridiculous. It's a stupid enhancement. It's a stupid play. I hate it. And I hope the voters of Alabama understand how ridiculously, what kind of groundwork this lays, and that they can make it to where it is a capital offense to speak out against anybody. Because all of this stuff, all of these things that these political strategists, myself included, think up on a regular basis is chess, not checkers. And these guys, politicians, think, well, I'm just going to throw this out there and get reelected. You don't realize that you may be putting out a law that'll make it a hate crime in 2027 to speak against the U.S. government in any way. Or to speak against the state of Alabama. You know, God forbid. What's they're going to end up charging that guy that killed the trees at Toomer's Corners with a hate crime by 2025 if it keeps going this way.
And this is what I'm saying. It shouldn't matter what the motive was. It should be the resulting harm, and everybody should be treated equally under the criminal law. Well, let me ask you this. All these school teachers that are putting their lives at risk going to work at a school that doesn't have a school resource officer like my mother did for 50 damn years or however long she taught. You know, why don't we protect them, Raines? I think we should include them.
You know why we don't protect them? You know why there's no legislation to protect teachers? Because teachers don't sell votes at the ballot box. But Blue Lives Matter does.
That's true.
That's on the front page of every social media and everything else.
Well, and Paul, wasn't your
matter anywhere?
And you had an angle on that too, right?
What's that?
On the Blue Lives Matter bill.
Well, no, I was more, I was commenting more on what you're talking about right there. It just annoys me that, politics are used this way. It's the same way with veterans.
Well, listen to this, man. Will Amesworth, our lieutenant governor, wants to propose a bill that puts you in the fast track, like the Texas electric chair fast track.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I'm just some dumbass lawyer, so I don't understand exactly what he's talking about, but I'm sure he's going to get it all worked out. And, it's going to be perfect like everything else he does.
Paul brought it up, and I'd like him to finish what he was saying about the current political climate. They use veterans the same way.
Well, no,
that 100% good on that either.
That absolutely drives me insane when I go to city council meetings and they call veterans up there and they fly the flag and say the Pledge of Allegiance and talk about veterans and this and that. But you let one of those veterans come back to that council with a bitch where he wants to complain and he'll be treated, exactly. Horribly.
So, Raines, that's something you and I talked about, and I think we need to get it out of the way. The hero worship aspect of it.
I'm absolutely against it. And I think there's a long line of veterans out there that stand with me on it.
Well, I don't necessarily mean, veterans so much as I do first responders.
First responders as well.
I mean, when we were kids, Jimmy's daddy was a police officer.
Yep.
So-and-so's daddy was a dentist. So-and-so, it wasn't like he's a police officer. You see what I'm getting at? I mean, it's turned into, it's gone from a profession to some kind of heroic. I don't know. And sometimes, and that's the thing. We had a couple of cops in this town that did some real heroic stuff, and people treated them as such, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that every law enforcement officer
Ain't a hero, and every firefighter didn't run into a building, and
nobody goes out there and says, "I'm going to be a hero today."
And
everybody says,
and every lawyer didn't steal a lollipop from some little kid's mouth, nor did he shower people with gifts this Christmas holiday season. You see what I'm getting at? I mean, It's just people, right?
It's people, but it's political, and you can wager it. Like I said before, there are undertones to everything they use when it regards veterans, when it regards responders. It makes me absolutely sick when I see politicians in Mississippi standing up, thank you, veterans, thank you for all this, and then go to the House and shoot down a bill that would increase funding for veterans' mental health.
Correct.
That burns my ass. Don't you do that. I'll call you out in a heartbeat for it.
Or
you want to wave the Blue Lives Matter flag? You better vote yes on every single pay raise that comes before the city council or
that's right.
Committee.
Let's give them some more money. Let's set up a benevolence fund, and help the families if there's a fallen police officer or first responder.
Far more significant,
as opposed to this bill that doesn't do anything, makes it potentially has a lot of potential infringement on the First Amendment.
Exactly. It comes down to, if you write a blank check against civil rights, somebody's going to cash it.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if it comes from a hate crime statute. It doesn't matter if it comes from a campaign rally. You give somebody a blank check on civil rights, they're going to cash it at some point.
I agree.
And I'm against
it. And just so, and I don't guess KK, and I'm not going to say his name, but that's his nickname. One of my best friends is a law enforcement officer. Like, best of friends. And anyway, he got injured in the line of duty. He used his truck to stop a guy who'd stolen a car. Physically used his truck to stop him, and he was injured. He was hurt pretty bad. So maybe we need some enhanced workman's comp for these guys when they get hurt or whatever. But the idea that we're going to have some kind of misdemeanor sentence enhancement that doesn't do a thing, and the idea that we don't prosecute people enough in this country. We got what percentage of the population locked up?
Oh, good grief! That breaks down by race.
20%.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a tremendous, staggering number of people who are incarcerated. And at the same time, and I'm gonna be a little rough on Cam on this one, because there was a comment in there in that article from him saying that everybody agrees that police officers should be covered under the hate crime statute. Well, here he is working on sentence enhancement. At the same time, he's proposing sentencing guidelines, which most of them are reductions, or at least making sure that we get consistent sentences across the state, because they were having situations where you got caught with pot in Gulf Shores and you got a year in jail, and you got caught with pot in Jasper, and they'd all price the damn thing on payment of court costs. So that was one reason for it, but mainly it was to loosen up some of these sentencing guidelines, so that people didn't go to jail for the rest of their life because they peddled in chemicals that the government says are bad for you.
Well, I'm not gonna get into because that's a whole other show we can do on that sort of thing. But you banish the privatized for-profit prison system, get rid of it, absolutely eliminate it. There's people in jail. I saw this as a meme the other day, and I'll stand on anybody's coffee table and shout at the top of my lungs. There are marijuana dispensaries in this country that are run better than Apple stores. And because of that, there's a lot of people that need to be out of jail right now. And the only reason they're in jail is because of the privatized and for-profit prison system. You want to help law enforcement? Take away for-profit prisons.
Now look, you're sounding like a crazy person like Eisenhower or something, Raines. Don't use your damn brain on this. We need all these people in jail for just as long as we can get them there.
Let's just keep building those jails.
All right, I need to kick Mr. Elliott one more time. So Paul calls him the tax man. Now, of course, he ran as a Republican, and the first thing he did when he got in there was support the $100 million gas tax increase, right?
Right.
And then, what was the other thing that he
the other
supported?
one was the education 1% tax. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, but not even better. But better than that, remember, he was the inside man going to keep this damn $2 billion bridge project going.
Right. Which he flipped on immediately.
And then, of course, the governor's like, you can't deliver, you're off the committee.
And that's exactly what's going on here. He's, like I said, he's trying to polish a tarnished badge, if you would.
All right.
What you call a tax and spend Republican.
A tax and there you go, Raines. And that's the other thing that I want to point out. All of these hate crime laws have come from the left. And they've been around so long, we don't even recognize them as that. And you got some guy who says, oh, I'm so far right, Reagan can't touch me, except it's tax and spend. When's the last time you heard anybody say anything about deficit spending? We're supposed to have a Republican in the White House. I ain't heard nobody's hand ringing about that. Not even my boy, our boy Dan Crenshaw, that our last hope. He's all on that stuff too. All right, so we're gonna switch gears here. Paul.
Yep.
It's on to you, buddy.
All right. Well, the 23rd of December, I was feeling a little bit better after this operation. I went to the city council to speak with them. And the present day situation in Fairhope, and I want people to understand this because I say a lot of negative things about the council and everything, but I want to make it perfectly clear that Fairhope today, the mayor is a public servant. The mayor has not been involved in one single scandal where she has taken bids or taken jobs or giving jobs to somebody else. And if it hadn't been for her in her position, this council would have been even more rogue than it is. Also today, as well as since I think about 06 or 07, the city clerk is excellent. And that's probably one of the jobs that most people don't realize.
And now her ass is out of a job.
No.
Paul Rip says you're too good. You gotta go.
Yeah, true.
You just painted a target on that poor woman.
Well, I know, but I'm thinking, the mayor's a woman, the city clerk's a woman, and the 5 men up there aren't doing a damn bit of good. You have an excellent staff. The employees and staff of Fairhope now, and I've been doing this for a little over 15 years, are probably better now. And some of those needed to be replaced, but they're really better now, and the morale of the city is better. The problem is the city council, and the biggest problem with the city council is that Jack Burrell, the president of the city council, has maintained that office for over 8 years. He has not shared the council president with anyone at any time. He has held that position hostage, as well as he's on the airport board, and that's another one. Now, coming up in the 2020 election, the qualification for 2020 in the municipal elections is going to be July 7th to July 21st. The election is actually August 25th, and a runoff would be the 6th of October. What I'm hoping for is that we are going to have many women that are going to run for office and some minorities. We desperately need that. People need to understand that the city council is the one that appoints the municipal attorney and the municipal judge. And the municipal attorney and the municipal judge that are presently in office are the same ones that have been there for 10 or 15 years. The same firms, the same good old boy candidates. And when we had a change of mayor here in 2016, we wanted to change, a lot of people wanted to change the city attorney as well as the municipal judge. And the city council, again, Jack Burrell stepped in, wouldn't have anything to do with it, and appointed them again. So here we are again. Now, when I went, you'll see a segment of the council meeting at the end of today's podcast. But
have you watched that, Reigns?
Oh yeah, I love it.
But anyway, this is factual. The city council, when they first started, they're established bullies. What they did in the first 9 months with the mayor and the way that they treated the mayor, and the mayor is a woman, and the way they spoke to her, and was classic bullying, absolutely classic bullying. Their oath of office says that they're going to abide by the Constitution of the United States. They didn't do that. They were taken to court for not allowing someone to speak at a city council, and they were found guilty in federal court. They had to settle the case. That's your tax dollars. The same council has repeatedly overlooked any type of conflict of interest, anything to do with the Alabama Ethics Code. There's no transparency. There's no accountability. The municipal judge there's 3 different canons of judicial ethics that are very questionable, because now the municipal judge is the largest developer in Fairhope. Now, he is developing a piece of property, I think it was about 79 acres, and it was approved in 15 minutes. This is by a council now that appointed the judge. So now the council is voting on the judge/developer's project. Okay? So it made me think about a conversation I had years ago. A prominent attorney in Fairhope told me, he said, "Rip, if you keep digging around, you're going to find out 2 things I think to be true." He said, one, the elections around here have been rigged. 08, 012, people were very suspicious of them. And in 16, we were able to get the Secretary of State to come down, and it did change. But he said the other thing is, you have to understand that Fairhope is run by the good old boys, and as a criminal enterprise. So I thought, criminal enterprise, I'll look that up. Now, the FBI defines a criminal enterprise as, quote, a group of individuals with an identified hierarchy or structure engaged in significant criminal activity. Well, I can take the word hierarchy and take the word structure and insert catalyst or good old boys. All 5 of the council members of Fairhope are directly embedded and involved with Catalyst. And Catalyst is a political group that tries to run block candidates to where they can control as much of the municipal government or county government, be it whichever one it is. So in this upcoming election, people need to really pay attention to what's going on. We just had, a $2.65 million purchase by the city council of recreation land. That was done in opposition to any community engagement. Nobody got to voice anything. Only 3 councilmen, Burrell, Boone, and Brown, approved the $2.65 million. The connectivity, the walkability, the parks, all disagreed with the location. The council pushed it ahead as fast as they could, and then they closed as fast as they could on the money to come up with the 2.65, which we did not have. Come up with the 2.65. Now here, get this, and I'm not making this up. The resolution this last week at the city council meeting is that the Fairhope City Council hereby authorizes Jack Burrell, that's the president, on behalf of the city council to negotiate a temporary farming rights lease for the approximate 114 acres of land located on the northwest corner of County Road 13 and 32. Now, that's the recreational land. And that the lease shall carve out allowances to withdraw certain provisions of the land from the lease agreement when said portions of the land are designated and needed for public use. What they're saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that they just paid $2.65 million worth of land. They have no money to do anything with it. And now they want to lease it for farming.
You reckon that lease is going to cover the debt service on that 2.6 million range?
Huh. Well, here,
There's no way. Let me tell you real quick, Paul. The Catalyst Group is a political machine.
correct.
And the terminology you used earlier to define a criminal enterprise was actually put forward under the RICO statutes.
Correct.
And one thing I am sure of is that the Justice Department of the United States is not going to come down and intervene in Fairhope, Alabama. The only thing that's going to change that is this coming election. Now, I'm going to commission you to come up right ready for the first of the year, the official RIP Report Voters Guide for 2020. And I want a list of candidates that people can vote for to get this criminal enterprise dethroned from the city hall of Fairhope, Alabama.
I can promise you that that will be the center of our attention on 2020. People have got to understand how dangerous it would be if this group goes in. This is by far no comparison, not even remotely close, the worst city council that we have ever had. So I promise you that's coming up. But all right, rather than harp on that, you want to get on something a little bit easier?
No, I want to bitch some more.
All right.
Shocker.
Did y'all see? You remember Mr. Moon, Alabama political reporter? He was on with us one day. Reigns.
Josh Moon.
Yeah, Josh Moon. So he's written a scathing, what I call an ass burner, of an article about the performance of Alabama's Attorney General. Mm-hmm. Have y'all read it?
I have not. I've not read it. But,
I shared it on Facebook. We're going to throw it up on our Backstory Podcast Facebook page.
Let me just inject there that Mr. Robert Brown, councilman with the Fairhope City Council, this is Brown, Boone, and Burrell. We call them the 3 Bs.
Right.
Mr. Brown took a contract for the Art Center in Fairhope. He claimed there was multiple bids, and there wasn't. We have turned that complaint in to the Attorney General, and they have a printed complaint. I
have it here.
And that complaint is going to be put up on our website with an amendment that is going to be going out very soon. This is part of why I say it's a criminal enterprise. Everyone on that council knows what Mr. Brown did, and yet they turn a blind eye to it.
All right, so let's talk about this. Here's the appraisal for real property that the city of Fairhope relied on to buy their $2.6 million worth of recreational land. One of our friends in common came and picked old broke wing Paul up. He can't do much. Took him out to this recreation land, walked him around, and what did y'all find?
Well, the first thing he told me, he said, I want you to look at the land. He said, what do you notice is different? And at first, I didn't understand what he was asking me. He said, no, look close. And then I noticed that there were 2 areas in this 114 acres where it looked like there were scrubs and maybe willows or oaks. But right in the middle of everything, there's this growth. And I said, well, why is that not plowed under? He said, that's the location of 2 separate springs on the land.
So they got artesian wells on the property, kind of in the middle, not like over to the side or whatever. And they didn't even, now that would be a major impediment if you were going to put a soccer field there. You couldn't put it anywhere near that spring. It might be an asset if you found some way to utilize the water or whatever. But for the most part, it's just a big old damn wet spot that you're never going to be able to do anything
maybe
with.
the council's smarter than us. Maybe they have plans for an aquatic
Fairhope artesian water. I can see it now.
The artesian water
Splash pad.
All right.
Well, no, I'm not done bitching yet, Paul.
Right, go ahead.
So you haven't had an opportunity, but Paul did. He came here to the house today. So tell us your impression of the big ass red barn coming in here to the only.
Out loud. Here we go.
Yep.
Well,
Burr under my saddle.
I don't blame you. You live in a neighborhood. You got you're wanting the neighborhood to clean the yards and everybody park accordingly.
No, hell,
trash.
I just don't. I want them to not let people build a 8,000 square foot metal building next to my friend's $300,000 house.
And then paint it blood red.
Well, barn red.
Yeah, barn red.
So here I have, and also we had a new Yahoo move in the neighborhood. We have a homeowners association. Of course, they hardly do anything. Anyway, if you have, and I wish we did have the window crack because it's expensive as hell. If you do decide to have a fence in this neighborhood, you have to, you can't have posts to hold it up. You have to have brick pillars, right? Imagine how expensive that is. So this Jake leg just went, we got this nice wrought iron, or I guess it's aluminum. It looks like wrought iron. Very expensive. This guy just went and threw up a monolithic. He went on his property line and put up a regular wood privacy fence, which is illegal. And of course, our homeowners association board knows it's illegal. There's just so much illegal stuff in the subdivision, they don't know where to start, and we couldn't enforce it. So I don't know. We're contemplating a little civil action in that thing. And then finally, if I hadn't been moving all my stuff, we have these documents that we got from the North Bowen Utilities attorney, and we're going to be whittling on some letters to the state, various agencies about that. And then finally, I want everybody to run out and buy one of these if you live in Bay Minette. You ever seen one of these before?
Are you on a commission here?
I'm not on a commission. But this is a cop cam. It's just a little miniaturized camera, and it comes with a little clip. You can put it on your shirt. You can set it on the shelf. You can hit record and set it on your dash when the police officer walks up to your window. But anyway, I mean, they got these on the as seen on TV aisle, and they come with an 8 megabit, 32 gigabit memory card in it. So anyway, it's not bad. It works for the intended purpose. You go for it.
Okay, something a little lighter without slamming politicians and everything. Again, in Lanyap, this was about 2 weeks ago, I think. I know this was when I was down and out. There was an article written by Ben Raines, Sunken Treasure. It's a reporter's remarkable account of finding America's last slave ship. That's the Clotilda. And Mr. Raines, if you've ever read any of his stuff, it's just really very, very good reading. He's been involved in many different things. He even runs tours into the Delta and is an expert in it. But this is particularly about the slave ship. And earlier he had thought that he had found it. Turned out that he didn't. He had to eat a little crow, and he went right back to looking for it again, and it tells how he ran into it finally and how they were able to identify it.
So for the people in Alaska who don't know anything about this, the Clotilda was the name of a ship that ran the blockade. Was there a blockade of Mobile Bay at the time?
Correct.
But it was definitely illegal to bring slaves into this country at the time. I think you could have them, but you couldn't bring anybody else in.
Does
that sound right?
This was one of the last.
It was the last.
Right.
And so they got the feds got on their ass, and it's not like you're in a schooner. It ain't like you can take a dirt road. So they ran the thing aground in the cane brakes, turned everybody loose, and burned the ship to the waterline, and it sank.
But what I found interesting about it is, especially being involved in diving most of my life, is just the problems and complications he went through. Mr. Raines tried to be forward and, talk to the Alabama Historical Commission, National Geographic, Southern Mississippi people and University of Southern Mississippi, and try to come up with the
I know somebody
facts,
that speaks their language.
about the Clotilda. And I had a run-in, and he had run-ins with the Alabama Historical Commission, as I did many years ago.
As I
in the
did many
70s.
years ago when they sued me.
Right. I had it over a couple of times, and both times I was determined after then never to contact the Alabama Historical Commission. That's the last thing I would ever do because of the way that they treated anyone. But I would encourage you to read the article. It is very, very good. It's quite long. Mr. Raines has other things that he worked on. One is the Selma munitions factory that's right under the Pettus Bridge in Selma. And oddly enough, in 1970, going to show my age now, 1973, I think it was, my dive shop in Birmingham, Alabama, the Riptide Dive Center, we used to actually run trips to Selma and dive on this foundry site. And I can tell you that the visibility is only probably about 18 inches. And this is the same thing that Mr. Raines found about the looking for this ship. It has a picture of him standing in waist deep water, or not waist deep, but just about mid-chest water, and you can look 6 inches down and you can't see anything. So if you think going out and putting on a wetsuit in 50-degree water, 55, something like that, 60, and then you're looking for something that you can't see or identify, I can tell you it is an extremely hard task. It is nothing, there's nothing easy about it at all. And when you've been doing it for 2 or 3 days and you have to make that last dive and you have to get back in that water again, I can tell you it takes a lot of guts. But if you want something that's take you a little bit away from the politics and very interesting to read about the history of this ship and how it's related to Mobile, I would recommend the article highly. I hope that we can have Mr. Raines on sometime on a podcast where we are, just talking about the diving and everything.
So Raines, when was the advent of the PDF file extension?
When was the advent of the PDF?
When did PDFs become a thing?
I think Adobe launched that right after the Oracle acquisition. I think that would have been about 1989, 1990.
Okay, I'm talking about when it became mainstream, when people would attach
mainstream,
PDFs
probably about 99, 2000.
Okay, so that sounds about right, because I was working for the city of Gulf Shores, and there was a guy that worked at BE&K Engineering with my buddy Trevor, and he had what he claimed was his grandfather's captain's log or memoirs, and his grandfather was the captain of the Clotilda. And so we took it and scanned it and made a PDF of it, and I tried to find it. I'm sure I've got it somewhere on the thumb drive or something. But for years, we were up knocking around the Delta, and at certain times during the summertime, the water level gets relatively low, where you might have 3 or 4 feet of bank exposed during a real low tide, or when there's north wind blowing. So there have been a lot of people looking for this thing for a long time, and I've probably identified 5 or 6 different, wrecks or whatever you want to call them, nautical structures from time to time, and turns out none of those were them. But I think they found out the dimensions, what kind of wood it was made out of. They did a lot of things to bonify this. So I feel confident they found it.
I'll read the article based on the guy's name alone. He's got a fantastic name, so I'm going to read it on that. I had a run in with some shipwrecking in the Mobile Bay. I worked with a captain who will remain nameless.
Didn't you sink a shrimp boat?
I did. I grew up working on a shrimp boat, but I worked with a captain who ran a hopper dredge when they were dredging out Mobile Bay, and this was quite a while back. And he was picking up just huge scoops of the bottom, and taking it to deep water. And man, he'd come up and he said, "Man, this is a heavy load. It looks like we got some trees in it." And the deckhand come up and said, "Cap, looks like we got some pretty big logs in here, and they pretty heavy. Well, it looked a little closer examination.
They
figured out
chained
that was
together.
out of a cannon sticking out.
Oh man!
And it was rusted and tore up and busted and everything else, but it was the snout of an old cannon. And they said, well, who should we call? And my buddy, the captain, said, you better call your ass back out on that deck, dump that damn load. We ain't calling nobody, partner. We got a job to do. They'll hang us up, red tag this thing, and the Alabama Historical Commission will get involved, and that'll be the end of this job. He said, I want to keep it, so just let it go, and we'll dig it up another time. Let somebody else dig it up.
All right. I want to switch gears.
We'll go this.
Huh?
Go this last one, then you
No,
close
let's get this one first.
Go ahead.
So I've been telling you guys from the jump to go watch a movie called Hot Coffee. And of all the damn people in the world, Paul Ripp has not gone and watched Hot Coffee. So
I haven't had internet for a week.
we're gonna play the trailer, I guess. This movie's several years old, but if we'll give them credit on the screen. So Nick, whenever you're ready with that, go ahead and run it.
Then we'll come back to Renaissance Woman.
An 81-year-old woman has been awarded $2.9 million after she sued McDonald's.
It wasn't like the McDonald's employee took the coffee, threw it on her.
Who brings these frivolous lawsuits?
All kinds of people that are jackpot justice oriented.
The media in corporate America did a masterful job. Mrs. Liebeck became a joke.
Businesses use a number of devices to keep the public out of the courts.
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
I was burned so severely that they didn't think I would live.
Hey, you can show me the burns? What?
Yes, if I saw injuries like that, I would definitely take a different view of it.
She was drugged. She was raped, gang raped. She had to have reconstructive surgery, sir.
Ms. Jones has had her day in court.
4 years to fight to get in court is not a day in court.
The Appeal was a book I published. It's completely fiction, and it's completely true. It's a story of the purchasing of a Supreme Court seat in Mississippi.
It's a good payoff. You put money in a judicial race, it can have literally $1 million impact on your company.
The U.S. Chamber mounted a very, very large and expensive campaign against me.
When you're pregnant with twins, it's really important to determine how many placentas. When I went in, it should have been immediately followed up with an ultrasound.
You just want to change what happened, knowing that it was preventable.
Go to court and to sue, you have to go through a lot of trouble to do it. It affects your life. You're going to be attacked in all kinds of ways. Going to court to gain justice is heroic.
So hopefully that gives you some perspective on what we're up against in the legal system. All right, so everybody go watch Hot Coffee. It's your homework. One of the issues that I wanted to run over with you, Rain, so Spanish Fort, Alabama, you know where it is. It's just north of Daphne, north of I-10. It's really grown up a lot. It was a little sleepy bedroom community for a long time, and now they have two major malls that are located in Spanish Fort. So they have a good bit of revenue, and there's been a lot of growth, even up to 25 that can be attributed to the city of Spanish Fort. So the interesting thing in this story to me is the mayor on October 1st allegedly slaps the city magistrate. Mysteriously, 10 days later, the chief of police, who's like 52 years old and got 10 years on the force, decides he's going to retire because he doesn't have a good reason. He's just going to retire. Coincidentally. So then, by the end of the month, this story comes out. He's been charged by the sheriff's department. All these judges recuse themselves. They go blow the dust off Judge Reed. He's supposed to have they're supposed to go forward. Everybody brings in a TV screen. This is as ridiculous as the Denardi issue with
knocking the girl off the bar stool.
There's a damn video of it. So why didn't they show the video? So here's how it goes. He shows up with David Connor, who is the city attorney. Now, you may recall Mr. Connor because Mr. Connor is none other than the registered lobbyist for Baldwin County Sewer Service.
Right.
So what if I told you that the city of Spanish Fort is completely reliant on Baldwin County Sewer Service for all of its sewer infrastructure?
Conflict.
Do you think it's coincidental that Mr. Connor is the attorney there?
I think it's coincidental that he's no longer attorney for the county.
Well, that's a good thing. But anyway, okay, so they get to court and they start him-hawing about whether or not David Connor has a privilege, an attorney-client privilege issue with being a witness, a criminal witness in this case. So do you think that David Connor works for the mayor of Spanish Fort, or he works for the council of Spanish Fort, or the people of Spanish Fort?
By rote, he works for the city. He works for the people that.
So why would the mayor have some kind of special privilege where he couldn't tell? Of course, unless, of course, there's some bigger cover-up, like why the police chief got fired, why the hell nobody knows anything about this for a month. And then all they got to do, that was the other thing. I found this thing on channel WKRG 5 where one of the reporters was allowed to watch the video. So why the hell isn't the video just public? They're going to let a reporter watch it but not record it? And he claimed...
There's, Harry, you speaking of dusting things off, dust off your rules of evidentiary procedure. You can't release things like that to the public. Because, man, why dare a jury after a tape like that's been released? There's no way.
Okay, it's not going to be a jury trial. I seriously doubt.
But what I'm saying is that the law says you can't release things to the media that are involved in that's evidence in an active criminal investigation.
Okay, well, they should expedite this thing. And everybody who was going to show up at that hearing knew that there might have been an issue for that, and all it takes is a 30-second phone call to the general counsel of the Alabama State Bar to get an answer.
Well, let me read in Paul on this. I know you've been dealing with your surgery, but there's a similar case in a smaller, less important house of the legislature, the U.S. Senate right now, that's going to have a lot of impact on how attorney-client privilege is viewed. I don't know if you've seen any of that stuff. It may have been on the news. I don't know. But the
potentially, I might have caught some of it.
That's just another example of not enough people reading the damn newspaper. I swear to God, if something like that happened where I live, just the social media alone would light fire everywhere. I don't understand like that can just go and everybody in town seems to be all right with it. You pull something like that in the city of Houston and they'd be demonstrating on the courthouse steps. Yeah. But down there in Spanish Fort, I guess they too busy trying to keep Foley off their back. And
definitely.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
I don't get it either because this woman who is a city employee and a magistrate in the works with the police department is being subjected to having to get a paycheck from some guy that allegedly slapped her in the face.
It's
how ridiculous is that?
On film.
Tell me there is a video of it.
That's what I'm saying.
So let's watch it. If it shows nothing, if it shows that it exonerates him, just show it.
In the case of...
And that'd be the end of the case, right, Raines? Well, if it doesn't, then you would keep, under the rules of evidence, potentially, you wouldn't want to show that to everybody in the county if it showed a strike.
Yeah. It's they're going to hem all on this and they're going to tie it up because...
Talk about a hostile work environment lawsuit.
If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And the fact that they don't want that they're hanging up on the rules of privilege versus public comment and everything else, that means something's rotten in Denmark. And if you can't see that, my God, I don't know why the people of that city aren't just banging on the courthouse door saying, "Why? Let's get it out. Put it out there. We want to see what's going on. What happened to the police chief? What is all this stuff?" Gabe Times.
We'll never know. We will never, ever know.
Well,
get out there and start banging on doors, man. Get some comment. Talk to people out in the bushes and behind the jail and whatnot. That's how you go out and get stories like that.
Yeah, well, this is, much the same with the McSherry case. Now, that video actually circulated on social media over and over and over again. And we put it on our podcast that, here's what happened. Well, the defense attorney, what he's trying to do now is say it's a criminal conspiracy. And who's he want to subpoena? Lanyap, the attorneys, myself. What the hell did we have to do with it other than report the news? But that is the mentality.
Or do our job. How about this, Raines? How about Mr. Pittman's theory that that me advocating on behalf of my client who was the victim of a crime was somehow political. And somehow there's this conspiracy between me, Rip, the Lanyap newspaper, and the mayor.
The mayor of Fairhope.
And I guess I've invented time travel. I get in my DeLorean and go back to 1932 when the city of Fairhope adopted the damn criminal code. It's asinine, okay? There's no conspiracy other than drunk idiots ought not to knock women off bar stools with no consequence.
And this man has had 4 or 5 convictions and was on probation.
No, I don't know about all that. I do know he was on probation for the Knoll incident when it happened.
All
right. Let's go to another one of. Hold on. Let me play some harp music. No.
Oh, for crying out loud! Get to the bit.
I can't find it.
Well, you need to practice.
All these sound effects, nothing works.
Another article through Lanyap, the Christmas edition, quite fitting for the Christmas edition, not a political article or anything. It's called Renaissance Woman. Speaking of Fran Newman, Miss Newman's 92 years old. Hopefully any of us will be doing the same thing as she does. Locals may have seen her work in the front of Daphne City Hall or atop the bluff in Fairhope's Utopia Park. Most recently, she left her mark inside the Fairhope Public Library. But Fran Newman has an international audience long before she sculpted the statue of the mythological nymph who shares her name in Jubilee City, or before she immortalized organic educator in Fairhope, Marietta Johnson, or just recently the library founder, Maria Howard, in bronze. Newman broke into the art industry by designing displays in the 1964 New York World's Fair. Now, these bronzes are handmade. These aren't molds made off of people's face. This is starting from scratch, studying the sculpture and doing it by hand and then having it fired. It's a very long process, as much as 9 months just for a head or a sculpture. But one of the things that shows you of her international reputation, she's the one that designed the Chicken of the Sea logo. Now, that's all the way around the world. Everybody knows that. And then the other one that she designed was the Play-Doh insignia for Play-Doh with the little reliefed guy. And I thought that was very clever because Play-Doh, and then what she did was made the Play-Doh out of raised letters, which, looked a lot like the Play-Doh. Now, one of the things that has come across because of this article. And again, it's just like Mr. Raines' article. I encourage you to go get a lanyap and read the article. It's very, very enjoyable. But one of the things that has come about by this, since the women have been, the Marietta Johnson and the library have already been done, the chairperson, Wendy Solomon, is establishing a nonprofit, notably for Fair Hope Women. And the nominations will be for First Women of Fair Hope. And this will be a new bronze that will be done, and 3 people have been nominated so far. Nancy Lewis, which is a former slave, and she just had a very nice dedication of a historic plaque on the coastal campus in Fairhope. She originally owned the land, was sold to single tax, then sold it again. But she was one of the very first people. And then, of course, Police Chief of Fairhope, Stephanie Hollingshead, who worked her way up through the ranks. She's the first female police chief. And, of course, the mayor, Karen Wilson. Meanwhile, Newman's not coy about her age, and her last terracotta, standing about a foot tall, was finished around Halloween. I thought this was pretty good. It depicts a cloaked and featureless Grim Reaper clutching a, what do you call it? The slate,
Scythe.
Yeah. Scythe. Never can get that. And at 92 years old, she said, I guess you never know how much time you have left, she said. I feel fine. It's all in keeping busy. But I wanted to do death just to acknowledge it. I thought that was pretty good for someone 92 that can think that way. But we'll be looking to hear from Wendy Solomon. As I understand it, they're going to set up a nonprofit and also a Facebook page, First Women of Fair Hope. And maybe by the next podcast, we'll find out who the next First Woman of Fair Hope is going to be recognized. Again, I'd like to slip in there that I sure hope there's a lot of women in Fair Hope that may be interested in public service and will run against any of the 5 city council people who absolutely need to see their term end at the end of 2020.
So I have something very unfortunate to talk about. Christmas Eve, some friends of mine, I say friends of mine, they're kids that I've watched grow up, and they're now young men. We're heading home from a duck hunting trip. Their vehicle left the road, and Will Brooks, fine young man, gentleman, polite, respectful, promising future, died of his injuries. His friend Sawyer McCullough was airlifted to USA Medical Center, where he's in stable condition. I know a little. Anyway, I'm not going to go into his condition other than he's stable and in really ragged shape. So let's have a good thought for him and keep the Brooks family in your thoughts as well. Just really, really good, promising young men, and you just, it's so terrible, and especially at this time of year. It just hadn't been a very good Christmas around here, so maybe 2020 will be better. And don't know the arrangements yet, but
the most dangerous thing you do is drive.
Absolutely.
Most dangerous thing you do.
Well, on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and I guess our outro is going to be Paul's crazy old man ran at the Fairhope City Council meeting. I'm totally in favor. I thought it was fantastic, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So we're going to let y'all watch this video, and we will see you next time. That's
podcast 15.
15. Who knew?
And we might be sending this to the district attorney and the attorney general. This particular podcast.
Shit. I wouldn't waste a flash drive or a stamp.
No, you got to keep on keeping on. Sooner or later, you get their attention.
Yep.
Have a good New Year, everybody.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
Here.
Francis Rip, 22985 High Ridge Road, Rip Report and Backstory Podcast. number 6 and number 12. On number 6, how many units is that?
42 residential, 1 commercial.
That, none of you were on the council when Wendell Barnhill started this project. He changed it 3 times. He did it right every single time he came back. He went to planning and zoning. He did everything that was called upon him throughout the entire number of years, which is about 6 or 7 now that he's been dealing with this. And I have no problem with his project, but I can tell you what the problem's going to be for Wendell. When they built the Publix, they broke every rule there was. Every single rule there was. They took out the right-of-ways. Oh, also Wendell was supposed to have a tree survey, which he had to pay for. But you know what happened with the tree survey on the Publix property? It was hidden by the planning department. Then when it was discovered, the tree committee assessed over a $900,000 value on the number of trees that was taken down. Nobody did anything. The other thing they did was they changed the entrance. Just whatever the hell they wanted to do over there at Publix, they did. So they changed the entrance. Where'd they put the entrance? Right in front of his property. So now you have 600 people that are going to be up at the apartments. You have 48 townhomes, and they're going to try to get out on Parker Road. Now, right now, the citizens up there in that area, 50 of us, it's going to increase 15-fold. You talk about traffic, Jack, look at Parker Road. You guys are responsible for that right there, and it's going to get worse. No one did anything to Mr. Cordy. The road, Parker Road, has yet to be mitigated at all and is a responsibility of the developer. He has done nothing to repair anything there, and the issues involved are ALDOT, the county, the city, pedestrian walkways. I mean, you got a real serious problem there. No one's paying any attention. What did he do? What did Wendell do? He went and bought a rear exit. He made sure he could get out on his property, and the people that he was selling to had a way to get out. They're not going to get out on Parker Road. They're not going to do it. We already got it jammed up now. You can't get in. Public's going to feel the strain, and so is everybody else. They're already cutting through the Publix parking lot because they can't get out on 98. Just imagine when they open it. And when they open it, you better be sure that the certificate of occupancy is for the entire project finished. Not open piecemeal, finish a building and then allow them to do what they want to do. Until they mitigate Parker Road. That is a serious problem there. You got a fire station up there. That fire truck can't get out of there. Ain't no damn way he can make that intersection down there. If it's blocked, it's blocked. And he can't force them out of the intersection either. That's on number 6. On number 12, who are you leasing? Who are you thinking is going to lease this farmland that you just paid $2.65 million to? Who's interested in it, Jack?
There are farmers that are interested in it.
The farmer that owned it?
I'm not at liberty to say.
Yeah. Well, if it's the farmer that owned it, then why in the world didn't you do a lease to purchase?
Well, let me tell you, it's not the farmer that owned it. He's expressed no interest in it.
So we're going to lease it. 5 years, that's how long you had the last one. You had to buy that property, $2.65, get out there, close it, finish the deal.
Anything that I do, I'll just tell you this too, would be a 1 year with provisions of less time.
You ain't going to do anything on that property for years, and you know it. And you know it. You know, so far this year, within the last 6 months especially, you guys established yourself early on as bullying the mayor, and not until the black preacher showed up and called you down did you start slowing down on it. You violated your oath of office. Conflict of interest is right out the door. Alabama Ethics Code, you're against that. Transparency and accountability, no way. Canons of judicial ethics, No way. You had to go to federal court because you wouldn't allow anybody to speak, and you lost that and had to pay that and the law fees. Yeah, you think it's funny, huh, Jack?
It's real
That
funny.
was taxpayer
What
money.
you're saying is real funny.
Community engagement, nothing. Lying to your constituents, quite often. I started thinking, you know, how
What
could
is this related to?
What is this related
Yes,
to?
sir.
This is
What
related to
agenda
number
item?
12.
In what way?
What do you mean in what way? This kind of goes in the whole thing. Every one of these things goes with it, Jack. Every one of them. But you know, about 4 or 5 years ago, a very prominent attorney told me, he said, I'll tell you something, Rip, there's two things going on here. One, they're rigging the elections. And two, they operate this town like a criminal enterprise. Well, in 08, they suspected rigged elections. In 12, they did again. But in 16, we were ahead on the Secretary of State. He came down here and oversaw the elections. And you had a real big difference, didn't you? So I started thinking, how can, you know, what would be a good explanation to this council? The FBI defines a criminal enterprise as a group of individuals with an identified hierarchy or structure engaged in significant criminal activity. I submit to you that a hierarchy or the structure is the good old boys and catalyst. Now, a lot of people, you got a lot of people hoodwinked, but I can assure you I'm going to spend the rest of 2020 making sure that they understand.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that wants to address agenda items 5 through 27?